Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Talking Ballax podcast. I'm your host again, Jack, joined once more by Euan.
Hello, mate. You all good?
Mate, I'm it's first season in a long time. I've been glad it's over. So,
Yeah, I know. Feels a little bit raw still. I know the season feels like a long time ago, but it'll still be raw, mate. It'll still be raw for a little while.
Well, there's still football to be played for some teams. Obviously, you got the West Ham in the Conference League final, Man City in the Champions League final. So still football to be played. But it's a weird one, Like I'm kind of happy the season's done, to be honest. I was a little bit fed up of football by the end, so which is very unlike me.
I wasn't.
Well,
don't get me wrong. I was pleased it was done because it confirmed everything that I wanted to be confirmed. But yeah, I miss it already.
Just gonna readjust. I feel like I'm like trapped in my corner. So I mean, as you can see from the title today, well, it's awards night. Really, it's from Talking Ballax Towers. It's awards night, and we've got some interesting ones to talk about. But first thing I'm going to say, actually, I need to address this. Earlier, like in August, Luke, who's obviously been on the show before from Corridor of Uncertainty podcast, like I've been on his show before. Like it's just very, very good. If you haven't checked it out, please do. But I have to give him some credit because I am donning a new shirt this evening. For anyone who is watching on YouTube, I'm donning a new shirt this evening. It's the Leicester 2005-06 one. Now, in August, we made a shirt bet with each other, and to be honest, I've got to give him credit. I mean, I was going to honor it, but I've got to give him a lot of credit because he honored it, and I know. Thank you so much for him for this. So we made a shirt bet with a £30 limit, and basically whoever's bet came in. If one of us was right, the other one bought a shirt for the winner, basically, and it only counted if it obviously went in. And I was like, do you know what? Luke was adamant that Conte Spurs were going to upset everybody and win the title. And for a long time, I was like, okay, he's definitely not winning. And then obviously Arsenal win the title race. I said, I was like, fair enough. I'll just flip side that. I think it was a bit of an open-ended bet. I'd said, Man City will win the title. Why not? I was like, it's the first time I'd ever done one for. That's too easy, surely. And then for a while, Arsenal obviously winning the title, winning by convincingly. And I was like, do you know what? Maybe I've not won it. City obviously get the title back. And Luke, to his credit, he's honoured the shirt bet. We're in negotiations at the moment about a new one. We're probably going to make it championship based, something to do with Leicester and QPR. But whilst both of us are going through a bit of turmoil, we're not confirming anything yet. But I have to give Luke credit because he went ahead. I sent him this one over, and he purchased this lovely 2005-06 Leicester JJB Alliance and Leicester shirt. I'm a big fan of this. We were crap during this era, but we had some nice kits. And I've always wanted one of these, like genuine ones, not a remake. It's one from the time. It's even got that sort of old shirt smell to it. Either that, or I'm just not very clean at the moment. But we'll, So
just outed yourself there, Jack. Just outed yourself massively.
Absolutely.
He works hard. He works in a school. Don't leave him alone.
Yeah, kid smell. That's what it is. But no, thank you to Luke for honouring that. And I've got a new shirt. Hopefully next season, Leicester do better than QPR because then I might get another one. But I've not got much hope at the moment. Euan, you ever fancy doing a shirt bet or something of that ilk, or are you worried that you based on what we're about to talk about? Are you worried that you'd get everything catastrophically wrong?
No. Do you know what? I back myself. I don't feel like I get all that much wrong. And I'll come to a bet that was made with my own beloved brother who made a bit of an arse of himself. And I've taken massive pleasure out of it because all season it looked like his bet was going to come in, but it didn't. So we will come on to that, I'm sure, at some point. So, where Ross?
Yeah, I mean, you told me about that, and I'll be honest, I was a bit like, after the season that particular player had last season, I was surprised by that bet. To be fair, I thought you'd back him a little bit more, especially as a former Geordie himself. But we'll see.
We'll come on to it. I'll explain why I was so cutting towards him.
Yeah. As you can probably hear, Euan is once again having like a technical issues, crackling all over the place. Sounds like he's coming from a 1950s radio.
We reconnect them.
Yeah, so he's gonna sort something out. What I'm gonna do now is I'm going to show you all something a little bit embarrassing, and it's that time of year where everybody does do this sort of thing. but you probably can't see it very well. I haven't actually got anything sort of on there really that I could show you any clearer. But basically, there is our Premier League predictions. And for those of you looking on YouTube, there's one thing you could probably say is that there's a lot of red crosses there. Only one green tick. Surprise, surprise. Euan, who is the green tick? The one team that we got right in the right position.
Man City, and to be honest, that didn't even look too confirmed until about 6 weeks from the end of the season. So yeah, it is a lot harder than I think we probably anticipated, as you can see.
I mean, we can't take all the credit for that embarrassment, because if those of you who listen to our season predictions, we actually went out and including our 2 predictions, we asked probably about, I think it was about 12 or 13 other sort of friends, listeners of the show, to put forward their predictions as well, and we actually worked out an average score. So that's actually the average position that everybody put forward, and nobody was correct apart from we all kind of said that Man City would be top. So we did pretty badly. But that just shows how hard predictions actually are. What we're better at is awards and looking at things in hindsight and saying how good things were rather than predictions. If there's anybody listening on here who also listens to the Liverpool Day Trippers podcast, which me and Euan have both been on numerous times, you'll know that I get my predictions wrong for the weekend all the time. So I'm just going to stop doing predictions. I'm just going to go on there for a good time rather than for predictions.
My last couple on there were actually quite good. I'll actually take that.
Do you know
I called the Man United win at St James's when one of their other guests was absolutely adamant it was going to be a walk in the park, and I just said nope, absolutely not. So yeah, there's a couple that I remember that have stuck with me. So you rubbing off on me, Jack. That's what it was.
Well, hey.
I'm only joking.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to try and dive into our awards. Now, this is why we're here. It's the awards night, and what we're going to try and do is go through some news. We've come up with some. There's some serious ones. There's some jokey ones. We've got some nominations, and then we're going to maybe decide between us which ones we think were the winners, basically. And we'll start off with probably one of the what we actually, when we talked about last night, was one of the more difficult ones, and that was the performance of the season. I'll lead into that. So the nominations that we put forward were Brentford 4, Manchester United 0, Newcastle 6, Spurs 1, Liverpool 7, Manchester United 0, and Brighton 1, Everton 5 as individual performances of the season. Now, this here is not necessarily game of the season. It doesn't have to be both teams in the competition. It's just one team putting in one hell of a performance, the best performance they possibly can, and seeing how they get on. Any there that really stand out to you?
I think the 2 that stood out to me were the Newcastle 6-1 at Spurs, because it was 5-0 at 20 minutes. So we almost switched off after that. I know you sometimes get those 5 and 6s, but to have it after 20 minutes was a joke.
Yeah.
So I think that one stood out for me. And then Liverpool, Man United, I think just because it's such a big derby, isn't it? And for Liverpool having a poor season, like they were having a really poor season, really kicked into gear and put them to the sword. Absolutely killed them, killed them. They were the 2 that stood out for me, but I know you mentioned the Brentford Man United one, which I think is a very, very good shout. And that was obviously something you raised because it was so early on in the season, wasn't it? With the new manager, Ten Hag coming in. So I think that one was definitely worth a mention. But one thing I'll say is Brentford always seem to get up for those games. They've done the double over City this season. They've often beaten teams, well, quite unexpected. I don't want to say unexpectedly as if like they're a terrible team or anything, but it is relatively unexpected how many scalps they seem to get across the course of the season.
Yeah.
So I'd say they were I'd say probably us and Liverpool on a par in our 6-1 and 7-0. Brentford probably just below it, and then I think the Everton Brighton one. I don't think Everton played all that brilliantly. I think they had about 6-7 chances and took 5 of them brilliantly. So Dwight McNeil was excellent that night as well. So I think if I was going to go for it, and I know it probably does seem biased, but it's probably the Newcastle one, because going into that game, Spurs were still going for the Champions League. We were in and amongst it with Man United, Liverpool, and Spurs, and I was genuinely concerned about Spurs. At one point, I was thinking they're a team that have done it quite a lot. Liverpool has had that bad patch. They've got Harry Kane, who I'm obviously not a great fan of, but he gets goals regularly, and to go to be in that stadium and for us to go 2-3, it was just like, this is unbelievable. And then by the fifth one, we all just were looking at each other like almost laughing. It was so surreal. So I think that one probably sticks out to me, but I can completely understand why people would say Liverpool, Man United. 100% can see that.
I was going to say, to play devil's advocate, do you not think maybe you conceding Spurs in that game, considering they weren't in the game, maybe takes away from it a little bit and puts people in favour of Liverpool United? Because it was total dominance, really, wasn't it, by Liverpool? Whereas you guys had that total dominance, and then you almost stepped off a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah. The only thing I would say about the Liverpool-Man United one is Man United have been battered quite a few times this season. They've been
Well, Spurs haven't.
I wouldn't say it's bad.
No, not individual games.
Do you know what I mean? I know they've been bad, but they haven't been done like 5-6s, whereas Man United have. Man United have been done I think on 4 or 5 occasions this season.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of the performances will come to in the next section as well, but I do think Man United have had that this season quite a few times, especially away from home. They've done really well at home, but away from home, they've been quite poor, and they have been done. So I don't know if that maybe counts against, I don't mean against Liverpool, but that almost makes it a little bit more, well, yeah, it happened numerous times, whereas Spurs hadn't been done like that because Conte did set up his back five, and they did get beat, quite a few times on the bounce, but yeah, 6 was a shock. So I don't know. I think you could literally go either way. It's a flip of a coin for me, that one.
I'm happy to lean towards Newcastle, but then at the same time, I feel like there'll be quite a few Newcastle-related votes, not because we're biased, just because you've had a great season.
Yeah, I think that is.
And I actually think, looking at this, Liverpool don't get much of a mention, and that's not to be like, oh, it's like participation trophy. I think the Newcastle one shocked me a lot more than Liverpool beating United 7-0. So I'd be happy to go for Newcastle Spurs if you're happy with that one.
I mean, I am happy with that, of course.
Yeah, I figured you would.
But I would have literally let you be the decider on that one. I can completely accept either of them.
Okay. Well, we will award performance of the season to Newcastle for their 6-1 defeat of Spurs. Okay. Good, strong first choice, and I'm sure you're happy with that to start off with.
I'm happy with that one, lads. I'm very happy with that one.
What's our next award? Next nominations for our next award, please, Euan.
So our next award is Game of the Season. So this is a game where it's been, high scoring. There's been both teams heavily involved for different reasons, but both managing to score numerous amounts of goals. The first one that jumped to my mind, I think this is a biased thing, was the Newcastle 3, Man City 3 at St James's in the very early parts of the season. They obviously had Haaland coming in. They went 1-0 up, and it was a bit like, same old story. It was in the first few minutes. And then we actually ended up going 3-1 up. Maxi was unbelievable that day. He was unplayable. There's actually a meme where Pep's on the touchline and Maxi's running at Kyle Walker, who we all know is no slouch and has put players to bed this season. And he's literally got his hand on his head thinking, oh, not again. And Maxi was unplayable. But then they came into it again. And obviously with the quality of Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne and Haaland, they got themselves back to 3-3. So it was a really good advert for the Premier League, I think. And that was where we maybe introduced ourselves a little bit this season. We're not there to roll over, and we're there to kind of hopefully stay. Then we also had Manchester City 6, Man United 3. With this one, obviously, City scoring 6 and Man United getting 3 away from home against the eventual champions comes across like a really good game. I think the only thing that counts against that one maybe is that City, I believe, were 5-1 up at one point. So it kind of, Man United came into it after the game was probably dead already. Yeah. But nonetheless, it was still a really good game. I remember watching it, and it was just entertaining. It was just really good to watch. You didn't know who was going to score next. And then the last one that we've nominated is Liverpool 4, Spurs 3. Obviously, that one was quite memorable for lots of different reasons. Yeah. There was incidents. There was potential red card shouts. There was a comeback. There was another comeback. There was a mistake to lead to that comeback. It was just intense all the way through. And I think that does epitomise what Anfield can be for Liverpool and the effects that they can have as supporters, and obviously that never say die attitude, which you can't ever deny at Anfield. They do come up with that, especially in big moments like against Spurs, which they were obviously both going for top 4. So go on then, Jack. What's your thoughts on all three of those?
See, I'm gonna out myself here. I forgot that last game that you mentioned, but actually once you said it when we were talking about it, there's only one winner, and it is that Liverpool Spurs game, isn't it? Like when we think about it, like, the Newcastle City game was a great game, but actually at that stage in the season, there wasn't that much riding on it, but it was a great game. City United, you're right, phenomenal game for the neutral. Like it's exactly what you want to sit down and watch on a Sunday afternoon. Like lots of goals, end to end, lots of action. But that Liverpool Spurs, do you know what? It like triggered something deep inside me that game, because obviously I've not enjoyed this season, like for obvious reasons. But that game was like, it was proper Barclays, wasn't it? Like that was like, do you remember like Liverpool Newcastle, the Collymore late goal? It was that. Yeah. No, but you know.
Yeah, I know.
You know. But it was
the advertising board looking down, thinking this is typical. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was that kind of game, wasn't it? Where it literally was like Liverpool dominating, Spurs came back into it. It was basically like a repeat of your game, but Spurs managed to get back into it. And then Lucas Moura, bless him, like he's Lucas Moura is one of them who, you know what, this season could have been nominated for one of our awards later on.
Could have been, about it. Yeah, you're right.
But generally, I mean, he's not an unlikable player, really. He's an all right player, to be fair. Like, and
what I thought was really interesting.
You'd rather that happen to Richarlison or Kane than him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly that. What was interesting was both teams could have had a red card. There was obviously the Jota, like really high boot that on another day does get a red card. But then you've also got Skip clamping Diaz. So there was controversy. Klopp was at the linesman. Even Ryan Mason was giving it. Then when Richarlison obviously did score, he took his top off, did that stupid pigeon dance, which he probably deserved to lose a game for that stupid pigeon dance, given that he'd already had so many disallowed goals. It just seemed like it was inevitable. He almost jinxed it there and then. And obviously they couldn't hold out another few minutes. And literally from kickoff, it was 4-3. I remember my brother was on the phone to me, and it went 3-3, and my telly was slightly behind, and I was like, no way. And he was like, yeah. And then he went, 4-3. I was like, I forgot, because obviously they were chasing us down, they were hunting us down. So it was proper Premier League. That's something I don't think you get in other leagues frequently, and we get it quite a lot. We're very, very lucky.
Yeah, so I think it's a no-brainer, really, when we look at it. And somebody will reply in on YouTube or whatever, and will say, "Oh, what about this game?" But for me, it's that game. And I'll be honest, I forgot it. But as soon as you mentioned it, I went straight onto YouTube, looked at the highlights, and I went, "How did I forget about this game?" But
it was good, and I think it always makes you think, because they both had bad seasons. By their standards, they both had bad seasons, yet we're both involved in such an entertaining game.
Yeah.
Obviously, Spurs were on the wrong end of it, but it just shows what this league is like. It's brilliant.
Well, I think that game, though, shows why they've had bad seasons. Like, there's ill discipline, there's defensive frailties, like there's a mentality. Like this Liverpool side at 3-1 up, you'd never like traditionally you'd never be like, right, they're going to throw that away. Really, this Liverpool team.
No, absolutely.
Liverpool teams have always absolutely
at Anfield as well.
Yeah. And to be fair, they did win the game, so that's kind of a moot point. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right. Next award. So the game of the season goes to Liverpool v Spurs. So they both kind of take home a trophy for that one. Next one is goal of the season. Now I've narrowed this down. Well, we've narrowed this down. Sorry, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and a lot of these were not. Weirdly enough, a lot of these goals weren't even on the match of the day goal of the season reel, but they are unbelievable goals. Some of them, like I'm not being funny. There's a couple in there that I forgot about, but they are unbelievable goals. So the first one, if you've not seen it, Yuri Tielemans strike beat Everton away from home, forced him on the edge of the box, and I'm not being funny. It goes in off the bar. That alone is like
just makes it look better.
Yeah. And it's a great goal, and to make it even better, it leaves Pickford stranded. So that wasn't bad.
If it had stretched, he'd have still not reached the crossbar.
We then had Enciso v City, that late game, that stunning strike.
Do you know what I love about that goal as well? I know the strike's amazing. Like, the strike is the thing that makes it. But they built up from the back against City. So if you actually watch that clip, I think there's about a minute, 20 seconds of them with Jason Steele and the ball at his feet in goal. And they play out. They get all the way up to the box and then they come all the way back. And then they reset and they go again. And it ends up at Enciso's feet and he picks one out. And even the City fans are clapping.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous
That's
strike.
impressive.
Yeah.
Given the opponents as well, I think that's probably why it was so impressive with the build-up and stuff.
Yeah. The next one I had was Haaland's like kind of half overhead kick, bicycle kick against Southampton, because I mean he had to be in there. Like it's the amount of goals he scored. That one was just he made it look really easy. Those kind of goals aren't easy. It kind of wasn't as good as Rooney's against City, but you know, like just how easy he made it look. It was just it was like lethargic. He basically like had a cigar on and like had a cocktail in one hand whilst doing it. Like that's how easy he made it look.
He's a joke, isn't he?
The next one is in my opinion, my shout for goal of the season because of who scored it. And it was that Michael Keane worldie against Spurs.
I remember celebrating it.
Yeah, it was a great strike. And I think when you think like all of the other players we've mentioned, like Tielemans and Cisse, Haaland, the ones we'll talk about next, they're all technical players. They're all attacking players with flair and quality. This is a centre-back who a lot of people have said over the years have argued might not even be good enough for the Premier League. And he scored one of the goals of the season in a really, really important game for Everton as well. It's that Michael Keane goal against Spurs. We've then got a goal I forgot about, actually, but Saint-Maximin's volley against Wolves. Like, again, one of the purest strikes you'll see. Like, it wasn't maybe as far out as some of the other ones, but it's an unreal
I think
strike.
what was amazing about that was I felt very hard done by that day. We should have had a penalty. We dominated that game. Ruben Neves had the cheek to come out after the game and say that we were a long ball team. They literally sat in and just knocked them long. It was just one of those days where you just felt it's not going to go our way. It's just not. And then the ball comes out of the sky, and Maxi, who's more than known for all of his skills and his technique and stuff, pulls out something that we've not seen from him before, where he watches it onto his foot, caresses it, but puts his laces through it and buries it into the bottom corner. And that is Maxi in a nutshell. And I mean, if anyone follows me on Twitter knows how I feel about Maxi. He's one of my absolute idols. I just love the bloke and what he offers and what he can produce. Those moments. That's what you want as a football fan. You want those moments where you get off your seat and you think that is special. Like, although everyone can go and have a go in the garden, and everyone can probably produce one in every 20, 30, 40, whatever it may be, depending on how good you are. That moment to do that in a Premier League game when the pressure's on and produce, it's just insane. It's an absolutely insane. So Maxi, I'm pleased is in there. I actually had forgotten about that one as a goal of the season contender. So thank you, Jack. I appreciate it. And then
the last one was Mateus Nunes' goal against Chelsea, which I thought was an unbelievable strike. And it kind of harked back to, I don't think it's as good as this goal, but it harked me back to the Kasami goal for Fulham against Palace. Yeah. You know, from the angle, the strike, and the technique. Yeah. The difference is the reason I think Kasami's is better is because it's from a much tighter angle. Yeah. And he takes it on his chest.
Torres, you know, the Torres Van Basten style.
Yeah.
Anyone else seen, which I'm sure you will have done, it's like that.
Yeah. So this one's because there's more options, this one's gonna be quite hard. But I feel like we've both got our own kind of outstanding one. For me, it's Michael Keane, just because importance and the player who scored it. And also, when's Michael Keane ever going to win a goal of the season award? But then, I mean, you could argue any of the goals, really. I actually think out of the goals that are on there, Haaland's is probably bottom of the list, but it's still a great goal.
Yeah, I know.
If I was going to narrow it down to my top two and my top three, go on, and see what you think. You decide from one of these three. It's Keane, Nunez, or Enciso, I think.
So I would have picked one of those three. I would have gone Enciso only because I think it's the opponents. It basically confirmed Brighton in the Europa League, didn't it? I think. Oh, did it confirm Europe? It was one of those where that point got them a mile.
It was an important goal, wasn't it? Yeah.
And you've got to also bear in mind, they took on City toe to toe footballing wise, and And I think that epitomises their season. They have gone toe to toe with people. It hasn't always worked. I mean, they got beat by us. They got beat by Everton. You know, it does happen, but they've never deviated from the way they play it. And I encourage anyone who wants to see that goal. There is an extended version, and they actually pass City off the pitch and they go back and they do it again in the same passenger play. So that would be my choice, but I could literally pick any of them. I mean, Tielemans in off the bar. Keane literally decided to turn out and become Vincent Kompany that time. Remember that strike?
Yeah. Well, of course I do. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. But like, this is the thing. Like, there's so many moments there that I think are important, and football is about moments. So I'm happy with any of them, Jack. I'm more than happy you concede on any of those.
Yeah, I mean, you said Enciso. I'd be happy with Enciso. We'll go with Enciso's goal v City. But yeah, any of those I'd be happy with. Now the next one, Euan. I mean, we've narrowed it down to 3. I'll let you take the lead on it. But this is for the reason we picked these 3 is for impact. It's not like there's loads of players we could have picked who've had great seasons, but I've not just gone quality. It's more about impact and what they've achieved, isn't it? That's what we've gone for.
Yeah. There was so many positive transfers across the league last summer. And to be honest, we could have made a full squad out of the amount of players who've come in and made a difference and been good signings and not being overpaid. So, transfer of the season, we have 3 that stood out to us. First one is Sven Botman. Obviously, with Newcastle having the best defensive record in the league and conceding the least amount of goals, and given his age, that has to be considered because you've got to bear in mind, we were 19th in the league when Eddie Howe came in, and all of a sudden we are now a very solid team. And I think if you take Sven Botman out of that team, you lose a lot of what we are and what we've become. He has made a couple of mistakes. I say mistakes. I think one mistake and a couple of just not poor decisions, but could have done better, where he's dived in at someone's feet and it's deflected over a goalkeeper or whatever.
The one that stands out for me was Forest away. Did he make the mistake there for the goal? Yeah, that's one that stands out. But like, he's a kid and he's not even at his prime, is he?
No, absolutely not. So Sven Botman to come in and achieve what he's achieved from the French league. He obviously was at Ajax and Ten Hag didn't fancy him and he actually shipped him out. He put him on loan to Heerenveen and then he actually sent him out to Lille and said, look, I don't need you. Off you go. He's come back. He's proved a point. So I think Sven Botman is a very good shout. The other one, which was your shout, and do you know what? I completely agree with it, is Morgan Gibbs-White. Everyone, when that signing happened, was like, what? 40 million quid, 40 million quid. It wasn't 40 million quid. It was 20 million up front that could rise to 40 depending on bonuses and things like that. And when you look at that lad's ability, he has it all. There's not something he hasn't got. And like you said, we went for impact. So Gibbs-White, when you think Lingard was the one that we're all talking about last summer, has come in and had big moments.
Well, he's ended up being the one that like drags as like particularly that game against Arsenal. Like there was one moment where, and it's something that obviously from watching the complete opposite end of the spectrum for Leicester, there was one where he went past a load of players, jinked past him, had a shot. It was a really poor shot. It wasn't a good attempt at all, but it went straight into keeper's hands. The keeper's then rolled it out to the fullback, and he's then sprinted like 25 yards. Giving away the throw in, but he stopped Arsenal from breaking, giving it the big ones to the crowd, got really pumped. And that just shows that he was absolutely instrumental in leading by example, leading from the front to try and get Forest up. And like we said, it's about impact. And yeah, maybe he hasn't been great over the whole season. He's had poor spells, but he was playing in a very poor team.
He's young as well, though. All these 3 players we're going to mention are all young.
Yeah, but he was playing in a poor team for a long time as well, wasn't it? It's either easy, this is going to sound really cliche, isn't it? But it's either really easy or really difficult to stand out in a poor team. You either look a million miles above everyone else, or you just sort of fall in with the crowd. And I think while Steve Cooper was trying to find the system that worked and find the settled 11 that worked, he kind of struggled a little bit because he didn't quite. He kept playing him in multiple positions. There was one time he was playing in midfield. There was a point when he was playing up front with Brennan Johnson. When he slotted him in behind Awoniyi, suddenly just found his feet and looked incredible. And I'm not being funny, most teams outside of the top 6 probably would have taken him on form at the end of the season.
Yeah, he's never hidden as well. He's never hidden. And I think there is players in that Forest team who have hidden and they've gone missing a little bit. I mean, John Joe Shelby comes to mind. I love John Joe Shelby, but he's already going to be leaving in summer. And I think you could also argue Lingard's been absolutely anonymous. He literally he was the main man. He was the one who came in with a point to prove, and he proved absolutely nothing. If anything, all he did was prove his haters correct.
Yeah.
So fair play to Gibbs White. And then the last one, which is probably the most boring option, is Erling Haaland. But we don't really need to talk about how the impact he's had. It's pretty obvious. Broken all records.
I think we all know. Yeah, I think we all know what's going to happen with Haaland when we get to the end of our awards. There's other awards that are up. I think we all know what might happen there. So yeah, we don't need to talk about Haaland too much now. We also do need to get a move on because we've got 17 awards to get through, and we've so far done 3. So basically, what we're saying is Botman or Gibbs White, and I know you've got a bias in that, but yeah, I mean,
go on, you go, because you could argue that
you could argue for any of them.
Got a bias. Because
I mean, to be fair, me picking a Forest player is not a bias. And I would lean towards.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But
you would lean to Botman, so I will leave it to you.
I think if we're talking course of the season, over the whole season, Botman's had a bigger impact, and I think even if City hadn't signed Haaland, then they probably still would have at least challenged for the title. I don't think he's made that much of a huge impact for them. I think Botman would be my choice, and I know that seems, but I'm not going against Gibbs White. Gibbs White was my shout to put in. I think he's been phenomenal. But yeah, my choice would be Botman. I'm going to go Sven Botman.
Okay,
and you won't argue with that, will you? So?
I'm not going to argue, Jack. You know how I am.
Yeah. We'll try and fly through the next few. I say fly through. We will discuss them. The next one, obviously, on the flip side of best transfer of the season, we've got the flop of the season. Now, that's not just any player. That's the flop transfer of the season. So somebody who was signed in the summer. We didn't pick anyone in January because we didn't think it was really fair. We went for January summer signings. We had Kalidou Koulibaly, huge reputation coming in from Napoli. Lots of Premier League clubs, Man United, Man City, Chelsea, linked with him over the years, come in, and he's had a pretty poor season, just like the rest of Chelsea. Richarlison, £60 million for 1 goal. Was it 2 goals in the end? Not enough for £60 million. Anthony, who loves to just spin around in a circle, put him on a spin cycle and leave him there for a bit. And then I threw a shout in at the end in Wout Fass because he looked like we'd signed another gem, and he ended up being Liverpool's top goal scorer for 2 months. And he was really poor. And that game against, he just loved playing against Liverpool, scored twice for him and was awful. I just personally, I don't rate him particularly highly now. I did when he first came in. I don't know if I'd pick him as flop of the season, but I just had to.
I wouldn't say so. I think
I just had to put him in there.
If I was going to go for one, I'm probably going to go with Richarlison, just because of the cost.
I think the money, yeah,
it's the cost equation to what he produced. Koulibaly wasn't great, but I think you could argue that Koulibaly's job is to keep them out, and the problem that Chelsea had was scoring them. And then Anthony, although I do think he was probably very overpriced, to say the least. He has got goals, he has got assists, he has had moments. So I think probably Richarlison, which is a bit of a shame for him because he had a decent World Cup, didn't he?
Well, I think it's, if we look at what we've done for best transfer season, it's impact, isn't it? And in this case, it's a significant lack of impact, really, isn't it? And this isn't us saying we think Richarlison's a bad player. I actually think Richarlison's is a good player. I just don't think he's a big six player. I think he's.
You don't play for Brazil if you're not. But
no, exactly. I just don't think in the Premier League he's a big six player. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I think maybe he works at Newcastle perhaps, or maybe at Villa or Brighton, but not at a big six club where there's big expectation. Because if Kane leaves this summer and he's the replacement, yes, he might score more goals because he might have the limelight and he'll probably play more minutes. But yeah, not for that price. So flop of the season, Richarlison. Okay, I think that's fair. Next award,
over performer, as in which club has overperformed. God, I'm struggling with that, aren't I? Christ. Who has overperformed this season? We came up with 4 clubs, and I think any of them would be more than justifiable. Newcastle, obviously the rise under Howe, finishing top 4. Brighton, finishing in Europe, being one of the hardest teams to play against under De Zerbi. Villa, obviously we're looking at relegation when Gerrard was in charge. Unai Emery comes in and they all of a sudden fly up the table and look a real handful. And then you've got Bournemouth, who were written off from the get-go by everybody, as we all know.
That video is iconic, isn't it, from Bournemouth?
We could have been included in that, to be fair.
Oh, we would have been.
But to be fair to them, I say them, it's Gary O'Neill. he believed in players that Scott Parker didn't and got results. So what can you say? I don't think it's probably perspective on this one. I mean, again, it's a bias coming from me. It's not a deliberate bias, but I just keep harking back to how much stick Howe got. You can't set up a team that defends, but yet we've had the least goals conceded, and then we've also then gone and scored a lot of goals and got top four, which hasn't been done on huge amounts of money. I know there will be in future. We've spoke about it, but I just think that is insane to break that top four, which I've mentioned before, only Leicester have done. We are the second club to have done it. That is a huge achievement, a massive achievement. And Brighton, who were raved about, and rightly so, we took 4 points off them, and we did batter them at home. So I don't know. But then Villa battered us.
Yeah.
So you know, it's
one thing I will say on that though is this isn't me saying you spent your way to the top, but how much did you spend on your summer signings this summer? About 200 mil.
You'll have to let me get back to you on that one. I think it was more. It wasn't quite 200 million. It wasn't quite 200 million. There was 63 Isaac, 33 Botman. Let me work through the team. 10 mil Pope.
Okay, let's leave it at that. So you said 63.
Target, I think it was about 140.
Let's just leave it at Isaac and Botman. So 63 Isaac, 33 Botman. So roughly about 96 million. Let's round that to 100. And if we round Leicester's whole starting 11 that won the title to 25, those two players were 4 times as much as Leicester's entire title winning starting 11. So the comparison's not quite there. But I'm just going to rub that in. I'm going to rub that in till it's till the fixtures and everything are released. Until they're released, we're still a Premier League club as far as I'm concerned. But for me, there's only one option for this, really. And the more I think about it, the more I buy into it. Like, it's Bournemouth. It is. It's not like they finished 17th by 1 point or on goal difference. They eased their way.
They were comfortable, weren't they?
And in the summer they signed Marcus Tavernier and Joe Rothwell. Like, they didn't bring in big names. They didn't spend.
Is that all it was?
In the summer, I think they signed, and maybe I think they signed Neto as well. But and Senesi, sorry, but they didn't sign loads of big players. They didn't spend loads of money. Everyone wrote them off. They lost, like when Park got sacked, they'd lost 9-0 to or 9-1 to Liverpool, whatever it was, which could have been performance of the year actually. Didn't think of that. I told you we forget one. But everyone had written them off. Everyone was like Bournemouth are down, and they eased their way to relegation. Like, if you look at the others, Newcastle, yes, you didn't spend like a fortune, but you spent money and you finished 4th, which is overperforming. Brighton did their system really well. They've had a brilliant season. They have overperformed. Villa as a club haven't probably overperformed, but as a team maybe have. But it just has to be Bournemouth. I mean, for a team that not even at the start of the season, we're talking like halfway through the season, even like February, March time, people were still saying they're going to go down, and they've walked their way. Like they've literally, Leicester, Everton are all stood there outside the pub, like scrapping away, like having a fist fight with each other, whilst Bournemouth have just walked out with like two tens on their arms, strolled out on their way home, ready to go again the next evening. Whereas the rest of us are scrapping. Like, it's, for me, it just has to be Bournemouth. And I'd be happy to concede on any of them.
Yeah, I'm happy with that one. What I will say is, as well, is they had clever recruitment in January.
Yeah, their recruitment in January was really good. Takeover really helps, but again, they didn't spend big money though, did they?
It was astute signings. I mean, you could say like a lot of their players that they signed could get in at other clubs, and they didn't buy them. They didn't make moves on them. So fair play to them for that. Yeah,
Ouattara looks like quite a good signing. We'll see how he is next. I mean, Bournemouth could go either way next season. They could steady the ship, or they could be second season syndrome. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Now we've got the opposite end of the spectrum again, underperformer. And there's 3 shouts for this, but there's, again, this one shouldn't take us very long, really. There's one quite obvious one. So we had Chelsea, who, I mean, absolutely underperforming. Like, that's an awful season from Chelsea, but there was a lot of disruption. Like, Todd Bowley clearly has no idea what he's doing at the moment. He needs to get the right people around him to help him. He shouldn't be doing it. Spurs, I mean, I'm not being funny. If a catastrophic season was 8th again for me, or like I'd take that in a heartbeat. But it's only one right answer, and that's my boys. That's Leicester. That's the only right answer for underperforming.
There is no way you should have gone down. It's just not a thing.
On paper, no. But
Chelsea and Spurs if you'd said Chelsea won't get Europe, I'll go, yeah, it's a competitive league this year. I can maybe see it, you know. Or Spurs don't get it. Okay, fair enough. As Kane got an injury, like I can see it. Leicester have gone down. You'd be like, sorry, what? Like it's a bit like West Ham when they were amongst it. Those two teams should never have been where they were. They should never have been where they were. Leicester, I know we speak about it all the time, but you've won trophies. You've won more trophies than Newcastle, than Spurs in the last however many years. Even Man United in some cases. Like, you should never, ever have been in that predicament. So it's easily Leicester.
Yeah, that's not a difficult one. We've got 3 more that we're going to try and sort of not fly through, but we're just going to kind of whiz through because we've got the big ones towards the end. So the next one, Euan, is
Streets won't forget my type of award. I like this type.
But
I'm
it's
a fan of these types of awards.
It's for the season as a whole, isn't it? It's like they've had one really good season, and apart from one of these players, we're kind of predicting that they almost will maybe drop off or maybe have inconsistent seasons throughout their careers.
Yeah. So first one, Mitoma. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. The whole he did a degree and wrote a thesis on, you know, all of that. Then you've got Almiron, who I'm not going to lie, I don't want him to get this award. He had a good 6 weeks. He didn't have a good everything else. He had moments, but he never took a game by the scruff of the neck and won it on his own. It was always Bruno feeding it to him on a plate, and he put it away, which is fair enough, but it wasn't. It was a 6 week period. Ollie Watkins, my brother would be delighted with that. We argue about Ollie Watkins all the time. I'm not much of a great fan, but when you consider the goals he scored and the performances he put in, especially the one against us, like he tore us a new one.
Yeah, he was fantastic, wasn't he? Absolutely fantastic.
Alexis McAllister, which is probably one of those that we know he's going to just keep getting better. He's a World Cup win. He's going just had Liverpool with Liverpool today, so that one's probably less so because he isn't the streets. He's a World Cup winner. And then the two that I actually said, and I would put them as a pair, and this is a little bit like niche, is Elise and Eze. I just think those two lads look like they're playing in the playground. They get on like best mates, like brothers. They've got a bit of attitude. They've got that carefree, but like killer edge. They are just a joy to watch. So yeah, there's a lot of options there.
See, I think for me personally, I'd probably lean towards Ollie Watkins because I don't think he's going to... I think he might have another season at some point where he's as good as this, but I don't think he's ever going to get better than the season he's had this season. I think this is about his ceiling. I think eventually, if Villa really wants to kick on, they'll have to look for a better striker. I mean, I could be wrong. Happy to be proven wrong. My predictions always end up being wrong. So I'd go for Watkins. The only one I'd maybe take out and say I'm not happy with is McAllister, but for the same reasons that Euan just explained. But otherwise, I'd be happy with Watkins, Mitoma, or Elise, or Eze. Unfortunately, it has to be one of them.
Well, we're not having Almiron. That's off. That's off the cards.
Yeah.
The minute he leaves, I'll be quite happy to forget about him. I mean, he's a lovely bloke. He's done well at times. He's not going in the category of Hatem Ben Arfa, Adel Tarabt. He's just not. Yeah. It's an insult. Whereas Mitoma, I would happily accept. Watkins for this season. I agree with you. I think he's hit his ceiling. I don't think there's much more to give from him. He's also playing under a manager who literally adores him. He sold Danny Ings to accommodate him every week, so he can't really complain. And then you've got Elise and Eze, who I would take both of them at Newcastle in a heartbeat. I think they're both fantastic footballers. So go on, Jack. This one's on you. I'm sorry, mate.
Oh, I'm going to upset a lot of people when I pick this one, though. That's the problem.
Well, sorry. Everyone's, opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's. Go on. What you going?
I know I said Watkins, but I'm leaning towards Mitoma. And the reason I'm going to come back from that, and I really like Elise and Eze, but they had like half a season where they weren't that good. Under Vieira, Palace were terrible. Suddenly under Hodgson, they turned it on. I think maybe this is like, I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm not saying they're not going to improve and get better, but I just think they had half a season where they weren't that good. Whereas Mitoma and Watkins have performed. Like Watkins has pretty much performed since Emery came in. Matoma's performed in fits and starts. Like, I think I'm going to go for Ollie Watkins because I think it'll be one of them seasons that people look back on and go, yeah, he's had a great season. A bit like, you remember the Asamoah Gyan at Sunderland or Papi Cisse at Newcastle, like those seasons where they had that one really good year and everyone will be like, that one.
I can see that.
I think it's that. So I'm going to go with Ollie Watkins. I think.
Yeah, fair enough.
The next one we've got is it's our player of the season by saying player off this season, as in out of form. This isn't us. Thank you. It's terrible. But this isn't us saying they're bad players. This isn't us saying they've been awful this season. It's just players that have kind of been like ones that you'd expect to be really good, and then you kind of just go, oh, they've been all right. You can't almost forget about their season. So kind of the opposite to Streets won't forget. It's more the Streets will forget. So that probably would have been better.
A lot of clubs fans will get probably quite defensive over this one as well. So just get a bit of a heads up. It's not a dig. It's not like
no. We rate all of these players.
They're better than they should.
We rate all of these players incredibly highly. Actually, like we think they're all fantastic players. The point is, we look at their season and just go, meh. It's not by their standards. It's just okay. Yeah. So the obvious one is Van Dijk, like one of the best defenders in the world before his injury. He has been great since then, but this season, kind of in line with Liverpool, ended up being all right, but for most of the season was just meh. Son was kind of the same, like started the season really poorly. Of course, scored a hat-trick against Leicester, and then like has been okay this season, again, by his standards. The other one, Fabinho, I mean, I don't know if it's age or just Liverpool's midfield, like that midfield has been a problem for them. There's like that's well documented. I'm not going to go into that. Emi Buendia, again, a player who Arsenal were looking at. Leicester, I mean, I really wanted Leicester to sign him. Villa got him, and he's got bags of potential, bags of quality. But again, just Villa fans might tell me otherwise. But I don't know. This season, whenever I've watched him, it's just been a bit like, decent. But I kind of expect him to be the game changer when I watch Villa, and at times he is, but a lot of times he's just quite quiet. And the one who I think wins it is Mateo Kovacic, because he is an outstanding footballer. He's, in my opinion, potential to be a world-class footballer, but at Chelsea, he's just not unlocked it. He has spells where he's unbelievable. And a lot of Chelsea fans that I've spoke to and listened to on other podcasts and on YouTube and stuff say he's arguably the best player that Chelsea have got. Yet this season, much like the rest of Chelsea, it's just been a bit, meh. And actually, he's not played that much. When you look at their teams, like the managers haven't really fancied him. Yet now, Guardiola seems to be looking to bring him in as the potential Gundogan replacement. So, Euan, any thoughts on these five? Again, just trying to wrap it up quickly. But
yeah, I'm happy with Kovacic. I would have gone Van Dijk just because I think he set such a high standard for himself. But I think to be honest, Kovacic is a very good shout. And I think if he does go to Man City, his potential is going to be unlocked. I mean, Pep is just the expert at that, isn't he? So,
I think actually, I think actually, Van Dijk ended up having a really strong end to the season with Liverpool. Liverpool in general, they had a really strong end to the season, so did he. Whereas Kovacic was just kind of met all season. Next one falls to you to go through the next award.
The next one is the shithouse of the season. Let's just all give it to Joe Linton. So the nominations are Joe Linton, because my reasoning for this was he's just a grafter and he gets stuck in and he's not going to back off anybody. He's not afraid of anybody. But he got away with something like 9 fouls in a game and didn't get a booking. So he kind of gets away with it at times. I think it's because it's not malicious. I think he's aggressive. He's kind of hard but fair. I know that's in obviously inverted commas. It's sometimes not fair, but that's how he is. He puts himself about. We've got Tyler Adams, who I saw firsthand be an absolute shithouse.
No, that's why I picked it. I'm trying to wind you up. Yeah,
picking the ball out of Jacob Murphy's hands as he's picking it up. But fair play to them. They got a draw. I mean, it never kept them up, and that's not a dig. But it helped them massively. It slowed the game down.
More often, it might have helped in other games.
And if he hadn't got injured, you might have seen a bit of a difference there, because he had a bit of a nastier attitude than some of them portrayed in the actual games themselves. Then we've got another little shithouse, Jordan Pickford, little T-Rex. But to be honest, he doesn't even wind me up anymore. Not that he did in the first place, really. It's more like we like getting under his skin. But he's almost a little bit irrelevant now. The way he goes on and the way he acts is kind of standard. Everyone's kind of used to that now. And then the last one, which I think Jack's put in just at the end there, is Newcastle in general, which, to be honest, you could have given it to Jason Tindall on the touchline. So I'm quite happy.
No, he's already had enough fanfare this season.
He certainly has, yeah.
He
No,
definitely runs that Twitter account, doesn't he? It's definitely him that runs that Twitter
It
account.
wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me. So I'm gonna properly push for Joe Linton here because
Do you know-
I love that lad in a way that I think everyone else would hate, but if he plays for your team, you adore the bones of him. So
See, I can give it to Joe Linton for one game alone. You know the Brighton game at home? Him and Caicedo going at it, and he was fully in his face, getting in his head. And then they were like,
we missed this.
Yeah, and then they were like, Caicedo, you mark him. And he marked him, and then he scored from the corner. Like it was him he was heavily involved in scoring from that free kick. Sorry, and because he got under their skin, absolutely. And Caicedo ended. When you watch the goal back, they run in and score, and you look behind, and Caicedo's like laid out on the floor, not fouled. He's just laid on the floor, looking at it like, oh. And that's the thing. Like Joe Linton was fully under his skin, and Caicedo's a good player who's had a good season.
Yeah, apparently Caicedo done him. Apparently put left one on him and
yeah, it was a header, and he kind of it wasn't like when you jump up for a header and your arm's there. He fully like looked at him and sort of put his arm up to stop him because he was losing that battle in the air.
Yeah,
when you were playing the Diags, he was losing that battle.
Exactly. Yeah, and I heard that apparently Joe Linton kind of got up after taking a knock and he'd been down, got a bit of treatment, and he kind of almost like went, "Who do you think you are? Like you wait." And I love that about him. He doesn't back off. So yeah, I'm gonna be very, very passionate here and say Joe Linton.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Shit house the season goes to Joe Linton. But all the other shouts were fair enough. Now I'm going to put forward this one, and I've already said when we did the podcast with Den. Well, when I did the podcast with Den, because Euan was off busy doing stuff rather than sat here on a screen. Is biggest bottle of the season. Now we've only put 2 nominations for this because the only reason I only picked 2, we could have done loads, but I don't really like this. But a couple of people mentioned that we should put it in. One of the nominations is for Arteta, just because the end of the season, Arsenal just fell apart. The other one, and I'm really going to push for this, is Brendan Rodgers just setting the tone for 2 team seasons at the same time by only making 1 substitution when he's got 5 available, trying to send a message to the board in 30-odd degree heat on the first game of the season, where we were 2-0 up cruising at home to Brentford. We threw 2 goals away, and those 2 points would have kept us up. And we should have got those 3 points, but those extra 2 points would have kept us up, and we threw away a 2-0 lead to draw 2-2 at home to Brentford. And then they obviously went on to have a great season because that momentum shift, they'd have gone, if they'd lost that game 2-0, they might have been like, oh, a bit dejected, but they carried on, and they managed to get a result. So I would go for Brendan's tactical disaster class at home to Brentford because it's an individual bottle job. Like I think if you look at the Arteta one and Arsenal, you could attribute that to no end of different things. Like
Stacker,
yeah,
Arteta,
well, just Brighton being quality, like
yeah. And I also think you've got to give it to City. They've got unbelievable quality. They were always going to chase them and push them to the end. It's just Arsenal's arse fell out a little bit earlier than we probably expected.
There was that one problem though, wasn't there, where like the only reason you could attribute it to Arsenal is because if Arsenal won all of their other games or equaled City's points in all their other games, but lost to City twice, they still would have won the league.
Yeah.
So you can cut, but again, even that, like, it's still very close if that happens.
I think it's harsh though. No one expected them to be where they were. I mean, I don't think bottling it is probably a fair. They arguably should have won it, but to say they bottled it is like they threw it away and gave it away. City hunted them down, and they're going to probably win the treble. That there's no shame in losing the title to a treble-winning team of that quality. There's just not. Yeah.
So biggest bottle of the season, individual moment was Brendan Rodgers trying to be clever, trying to be smart, and basically long-term setting the tone for the season, costing himself his job and costing Leicester City their place in the Premier League. Because there's loads of other games, but those 2 points, literally those 2 points alone in a game we were absolutely cruising, would have kept us up. So that's biggest bottle of the season. Next award, 2 shouts here. Again, only 2 nominations because there could have been loads. One of them recently where Micah Richards said he was better than Gary Neville in some aspects. What was he? Stronger and quicker, maybe. But
I was better than you, Warner. Yeah. I was better than you, Warner.
He was like, come on a minute. But I think he was just winding him up. But anyway, so go on, Euan.
Okay, media moment of the season. The 2 nominations are James Maddison's tweet saying, "We'll be all right." As we now know, they weren't all right.
No, we were not.
And he kept doing that. It wasn't just one tweet either. It was numerous where he was he was coming out and he was biting back, and you think, well, at least he's shown a bit of fight. But then you seen him play and bottle the penalty that he took against Pickford, and you just think, James, mate, shut up. Shut
Rubbish.
up.
Analyze
Stop
and
it.
watch the game.
Stop it,
Play
man.
like that every week and we'll be fine. Wow.
Oh, God.
And that's now his defining legacy at Leicester, really. That tweet will be like, there'll be case studies of that in like 40 years' time in history lessons in schools.
There's a psychology lesson in there somewhere, isn't there? And then the second one, which I've got to be honest, makes me chuckle massively, is when Andy Robertson is labelled a baby by Roy Keane. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Where
Baby.
then just get on with the game, baby.
Baby.
Baby. And then all the lads in the studio are giving it, don't laugh, don't laugh,
Yeah.
don't laugh.
It's so...
And then goes, baby, for the 3rd time. Yeah. He's just absolute comedy gold.
He's box office,
excellent. Isn't he? He's class. So I mean, I'm gonna say like the Maddison one, footballing wise, is 100% the media moment of the season. But if you're gonna talk about pure humour and general like Roy Keane's stern, take no shit attitude demonstrated on telly, yeah, it's got to be that. It's got to be that. It was brilliant. It was just excellent.
Baby.
Baby.
Yeah. Media moment of the season is Roy Keane's baby. Right, next one, and these next 2 are kind of joke awards, so we'll whiz over these as well. But this one was actually a shout from Lawrence, and it's incredible. And we've kind of swung it a little bit. Now, this award is the Even I Wouldn't Bet Money on That award, sponsored by Ivan Toney. And the 2 nominations are Leicester to get relegated, and Euan, I'll let you explain the second one because I still don't really get it.
Right. So, obviously, this is something that I wouldn't bet my money on. Now, I will say I would never have bet my money on Leicester City getting relegated ever. But I actually did bet my money on Mitrovic not getting 15 goals. And my brother bet that he would. Now, this was, you might be thinking, well, why is this controversial? This is before the first game of the season kicks off, where Fulham played Liverpool. We're in the Fat Hippo in Liverpool, in Newcastle, watching the Liverpool game on our phone. And Ross was like, let's all have like one of these shouts where you like something you don't think is going to happen, but you'll almost make it a shout. And he went, mine is Alexander Mitrovic will get 15 goals this season. And I just went, shut up. No, he's not. No, he's not. I was like, suspensions will kill him. There's no way he's getting 15. And
suspensions did kill him in the end, yeah.
In that game, he scored, and Ross was like celebrating in the middle of Newcastle this Fulham goal against Liverpool as if it was Newcastle winning the cup final. And I was like, oh, God. And he was embarrassing me and Carl. So as the season's gone on, he's been going, oh, he's on 6, he's on 7, he's on it. And then the moment of madness came at 11 goals where Alexander Mitrovic decided to become some sort of UFC fighter and attacker referee and got an 8-match ban. And I was like, Ross, I told you suspensions would kill him. Anyway, he comes back for the last few games of the season. He gets a couple of goals. He's on 14 for the last game against Man United. I'm at Stamford Bridge in the away end. We're all stood in the line. Gersh, shout out Gersh, who was at the Man United game, went, penalty Fulham. We got the text through. Everyone's like, oh, Euan, you've lost it. And I was like, hey, it hasn't gone in yet. And anyway, about 30 seconds later, De Gea saved it. De Gea never saves penalties. He never saves penalties. And just to rub salt in the wounds, Ross, because I know you're listening, Mitrovic could have scored a penalty at St. James's earlier this season and did, but double the ball.
Yeah.
So
that was harsh. That was harsh.
So he missed, I think, 3 or 4 pens this season. So really, I should have lost that bet. That was a bad shout for me.
And he had an 8-game suspension as well. You'd have lost that bet if he didn't.
Exactly. He would have probably wiped the floor and got double. So
you know what, that's a good shout for a good shout for a shirt bet, that is.
Yeah, we should have done that. Even I wouldn't bet my money on that. Alexander Mitrovic wouldn't get 15 goals. And I was completely right, but literally by the skin of my teeth.
So I guess it's a toss up in the air because Leicester City getting relegated this season. Leicester getting relegated in general. Like, yes, we nobody's got a God-given right to be in the Premier League, but
I only got away with that on luck. So Leicester, it's got to be.
Yeah. So that's Leicester are the inaugural winners of the Even I Wouldn't Bet Money on That award, sponsored by Ivan Toney. The next award, again, shout out Luke from Corridor of Uncertainty Podcast. Getting a lot of shouts tonight, Luke. Euan, next award.
Mark Noble Peace Prize.
Which we had no idea what that was for. We had no idea what to give this for. So
yeah, we just wanted to use the pun. So we said the most boring player of the season. Now Jack sent me some stats of a player.
Mate, come on.
And it was like 14 appearances, no goals, no assists, nothing. I think he had 2 yellow cards, which is very, very
literally nothing but 2 yellow cards.
It was literally nothing went on.
I won't read the player. I'll just say the things. So appearances 14. Goals, none. Assists, none. Clean sheets, none. Saves, none. 2 yellow cards, 0 red cards. Didn't look at all the other stats because obviously all the other stats would have been like just random passes and things. But literally, even that, like yellows and red cards, 14 games, no clean sheets. 14 appearances, no clean sheets at all.
That's shocking, that.
Yeah.
That was Callum Chambers.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had Craig Dawson, just because Craig Dawson looks like a pretty boring professional, and that's
he's the kind of guy. This isn't a slight on any professions, but he is the sort of person that you'd maybe meet on a night out, and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'm an electrician." Like it could be any job. He'd be like, "Oh, I'm an accountant. I'm a solicitor." He's just an average run of the mill guy, isn't he? But
yeah, he's just a normal, sensible guy, isn't he? Then we had Harrison Reed, who again,
same sort of thing.
You know who he is, but you're a bit like, what's he good at? I don't know, really know. Yeah, he's a bit.
And again, I think if you walk past him in the street, you might not recognize him.
Yeah.
Premier League footballer, but you might walk past him in the street and be like, do I recognize him somewhere? Is he just one of those guys?
Standard guy. But the one I've gone for, and to be honest, I think I don't really like him. I've got no. So maybe most boring doesn't come across correctly here, but Patrick Bamford, like he just is boring, and I don't know.
But he's also not, because like he's become a bit of a meme, hasn't he? Like a lot of people saying he's the reason Leeds have gone down. So
contradictory, isn't it? Really, but I think just with him, he's just so beige, isn't he? He's so vanilla. If you went to an ice cream van with him, he wouldn't be getting sprinkles, a flake, or any kind of
plain ice cream.
Yeah, he'd just literally get a cone with some vanilla ice cream. I just get that impression of him. So yeah, I'm not much of a fan of Patrick Bamford. I think he's very boring.
Orders a burger and says, "Yeah, I can have it with no sauce, no salad, no gherkins, nothing like that. Just plain meat and bread."
Yeah, exactly.
But I just think if we're going it on a football thing, like as a footballer being most boring, it's got to be Callum Chambers, really. But I'd be happy to concede Bamford as well.
Yeah. No, I'm going Callum Chambers because those stats I was a bit like, what?
It's literally like you literally look at them and go, have you even played a game this season?
Yeah,
like he could have got those 2 yellow cards while sat on the bench, couldn't he?
He really could have done. So next one, Jack, rookie of the season. Take it away.
So this one, we've done this to replace young player of the season because we both like the idea of young player of the season, but it's never awarded properly because the young player of the season, it says under 23. Now, if we look at Raheem Sterling as an example, when Raheem Sterling was 23, he'd been playing in the Premier League for 6 seasons already. So he's not really a young player. He's young and he's a football player, but he's not really a young player. He's an experienced player. By that time, if you played every game in the Premier League, you could have played over 180 games. So that's not a young player. We went for rookie of the season because it's these players have all had their debut Premier League seasons. Like it's their first season in the Premier League. So no matter what age they are, they could apply. But we've tried to go for relatively young players. And the 4 shouts are Julian Alvarez, Karim Matoma, Brennan Johnson, and Wilfried Gnonto. Now, the strong shouts for all of them, I am going to put my flag firmly in the ground and say I don't think it's Gnonto. That's not to say he's not been great, but I just think he really shone really bright at the start and then completely tailed off towards the end.
Yeah, he got dropped a few times, didn't he? And it was, I think it affected Leeds, to be fair, but there must have been something to that. So he did kind of falter out a little bit, didn't he?
And also I'd argue the same for Brennan Johnson. And again, I promise this isn't me being anti-Forest. It's just towards the end, Awoniyi and Gibbs-White were like the front two. Yeah. It started with Johnson. Johnson did brilliantly this season. If I was listening to another podcast or another thing and somebody said Brennan Johnson, I wouldn't be like, absolutely not. I'd be like, yeah, I can see it. I just think out of these 4 that we've picked, it's between Alvarez and Mitoma. Because I think with Alvarez, like to be the understudy to Haaland, even though he's older than him, but to be the understudy to Haaland and still probably be and to be able to walk into any team apart from maybe 2, Spurs and City are the only 2 we really said, and even in Spurs he might get in regularly, but they're the only 2 teams that he probably doesn't walk into this season. Like that's something like when you've got that player in competition for your position and you're still walking into 18 teams in the league, it's a pretty impressive first season. And then we've already talked about Matoma and how excellent he's been. So
I'm going to go with Alvarez because Mitoma's he's not young. He's actually not a young footballer. And I know it's not about the young thing, but Mitoma is far more experienced. He's far more worldly. And I think Alvarez coming to a completely new league because, I mean, you've got to bear in mind, this lad
and he's won a World Cup this season.
12 million, and then he won the World Cup, and he kept Lautaro Martinez out of the team and basically literally facilitated Messi in what he needed to do. Then came back and ended up having a big influence on the title race in a pet team that also included Haaland. I think it's got to be Alvarez, hasn't it? It's got to be.
Yeah. So now we've got one that I think requires some conversation, and then we've got the big one at the end. But Euan, you can lead this one because I know why you want to lead it, but you can lead this next one.
Manager of the season. The nominations are Sir Edward Howe, Roberto De Zerbi, and Gary O'Neill. Now, to be honest, I think it's a bit of a joke that Pep got this actual award. Because
that's not to take away from what he's done. That's not saying he's been bad or anything.
But every single person expected Pep to win the league, which they did, which is fair enough. They also do have Kevin De Bruyne. They also do have Erling Haaland. They also do have like Ruben Dias. They've got Gundogan. Like these players are expected to win the league under Pep Guardiola.
And they haven't done it as well as they have in previous years. Because remembering that like the treble is a fair argument if we're talking about European manager of the season, but we're talking about Premier League manager of the season. Like if they win the treble, that puts Pep in the all-time greats. Like one of the he already is one of the all-time greats, but firmly in like the top 3 managers of all time because he's done it twice with 2 different clubs. But I just think that as far as Premier League is concerned, this season he's expected to win the league. He's literally expected to finish first and first only, and he's done that. And he hasn't done it as well as he's done in previous years with a striker that scored 36 goals in the league.
Yeah, and I think it's worth mentioning that how if we're going to go off the other things and the other competitions, I know we have just said it's Premier League only, but how got us to a cup final, which we haven't done in over 20 years, and De Zerbi got Brighton to a semi-final and only lost on penalties and probably deserved to win that game. So it's not like the other 2 managers there have actually not had success in other competitions. They have. Yeah. I think it's relative to what they are. But I think Pep, with the squad and the players and, just the general backing he has of that club and the control he has of that club, we expected him to do what he's done. I'd have probably said a double was pretty standard for them. A treble, not so much, but a double is. I think De Zerbi and Howe have achieved far beyond what anyone expected. And you could say the same about O'Neill. The only thing
it's his first job as well.
Yeah.
His first job. Like that's what kind of gets taken away from Gary O'Neill. Like it's not like he's an experienced manager. This is his first job. He got thrown in at the deep end. A lot of people thought Bournemouth were going to bring in someone to replace him. He got it, and he's ended up absolutely smashing it, and they've been fantastic.
And Scott Parker wrote off all those players. He kept openly saying it in the media. Gary O'Neill went in there, galvanised them, put them literally in the dressing room and said, right, no one outside of this room believes in us, but we need to. And he did. They got 2 draws against us. Like we were a good side this season. They did
the double over us.
There's not a lot bad to be said about what he achieved this season. There's nothing he did wrong. But I think it's Howe or De Zerbi personally. That's my choice. I think Howe purely because of the breaking top 4, the expectation, because there is expectations at St James's now, and I don't even know if it's within the crowd. I think it's more, the board expect it. They've got big ambitions, and I think the media started putting on pressure, saying, "Oh, who's going to drop out the top 4?" In the end, we were very comfortable. So I would probably say Howe, but that is probably from a biased point of view.
No, but I think you've got to lean towards Howe as well. I think De Zerbi's been phenomenal, but then at the same time, how much of that was? Now I'm gonna make it about me. I'm gonna do a little bit of Leicesterism here, but like when Ranieri won the title, he came in and he built on top of what Pearson had already laid the groundwork for. And now I'm not saying that De Zerbi hasn't gone in and improved Brighton. I do think they're better now to watch as a neutral than they were under Potter. But how much of that is Potter's groundwork that De Zerbi's then ran with and done really well with? Eddie Howe came in, like you've said already on this podcast, you were 19th when he came in. a lot of people
without a win.
You-
Without a win.
yeah,
The only team in the top 4 divisions without a win.
you lost to Cambridge in the cup as well, and everyone thought, I know you'd made changes for that game, but it was like, that's not great.
Trippier played that day.
Yeah, and obviously you had injuries and stuff last season, and then he's managed to do you out and fly up the table. Really, like we had you in like what eighth place or ninth place, something like that. Like, and I think a lot of people, like, if we go back to August, you ask most news, like the majority of level-headed Newcastle fans, you'd have taken anything in the top half.
Yeah,
like,
100%. Put run top. 100%.
Yeah, and to finish in the Champions League in your first season, yes, you've got to go through the qualifiers and stuff, and it's not ideal, but it suddenly opens you up to a world of possibilities in terms of transfers, and like the amount of players that would now want to come to Newcastle is different. Like, because if you'd been like, I don't know, in Europa League, a lot of people might have gone, well, it's European football, and there's money, but like, do we want to go to Newcastle? Like, even if you'd have finished outside of Europe, but to be in the Champions League, a lot of players now, without even Newcastle sniffing around, will kind of be looking over, being like, oh, do you know, I want to be a part of that. That looks good.
Yeah. You've nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it, mate.
And I think it has to be Eddie Howe, especially considering he was kind of written off as everybody being like a bit like the Mancini, like not the Mancini, the Mark Hughes of he's the guy before the guy. Like, he's the one that comes up. Yeah, he's the one that comes in.
I'll put my hand up. I didn't think he was going to be what he is. No way.
No, I thought he'd get you into the top half and get you into that position for then somebody more elite to come along and take you on to that next level. Like,
he's such a diligent bloke. Like, he works so hard and he's so self-critical. I mean, after that game at Stamford Bridge, he just as they're all walking in, he turned around and he gave a big fist pump. I've not seen that from him. I've not seen that. That's how like level-headed he is. But he let it out, and he's got so much to give. I think you've got to give him so much credit.
Well, this last game of the season, the job's done there, isn't it? He's got nothing else to worry about. He's like, because he's always said, like, whenever I've heard him in interviews, he's always been like, the next game. That one, it's like there is no next game until next season. I can let off a bit of steam now, can't I?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'm so happy with him, and I'm so happy for him as well. He deserves it massively, because so many people laugh. There's that famous TalkSport clip. Right, you've got all the money in the world. Who do you want? What manager do you want? And a Newcastle fan went Eddie Howe, and he got laughed at.
Yeah. Well, was that O'Hara? Yeah. Was that O'Hara and Cundy? Was that who it was?
Yeah, it was. And that's no surprise.
Yeah, but you can't take that seriously, can you? So manager of the season, Eddie Howe, which leaves us with player of the season. Now, this is the big one, and there's a reason why a certain player has not got any other awards, but neither have the other two players that we've shouted out here, and they could have been up for some of the other awards. Yeah. So the three nominations we went for were Ilkay Gundogan, because this season he's just proven himself even more to just be an absolute clutch, big moment player. Like his goal, I mean, I know we're talking just Premier League, but his goal in the FA Cup final, you're 15 seconds in. How many players would absolutely snatch at that? Like, and
even if you're going to rule that out, what about the one where he takes it at Everton, he flicks it over his own shoulder?
Yeah. I mean, he's
such a like, and I say this, he's such a sexy footballer in that he sees things in ways that you probably go, well, that looks easy, but no one does it.
Yeah,
nobody does it.
And he steps up in big moments. I mean, like, you look at the title last season, he got the winning goal for the title last season, didn't he? Like, and then we had Martin Odegaard, and I think it's big for him because, like, he was a player that actually, when he went to Real Madrid, he had high hopes for him, but a lot of people kind of wrote him off. Even when he first went to Arsenal, it was kind of, he'd be all right, but he's ended up
being... Well, he was in the same breath as Smith Rowe, and people were saying, right, and now look at it. I mean, God, different trajectories there, isn't it?
And for the Scandinavians everywhere, like, it's got to be incredible for people to be talking about two Norwegian players as Premier League player of the season. But the other one, I mean, it's Erling Haaland, isn't it? I mean, like, he's come in and he's smashed every record apart from one. Every goal scoring record apart from one.
It's a joke, isn't it?
Which he didn't even get close to, and that would be a Sir James Vardy.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
The 11 in a row. Didn't even get close to that. 7 was, I think, his 6 or 7 was his.
Because it's so obvious who's going to win it. Let's place them in like first, second, third.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Haaland, 1, easy.
Yeah. Who would you put second?
I'd put Odegaard second because, and not just to be different, like, I just think that Gundogan is a phenomenal footballer, but he's in a team of phenomenal footballers. And like we've just said, like, Kovacic will go to City. If he does, he'll go to City and he will suddenly look like, I mean, he already is a great footballer. I'm not taking that away from him, but he will suddenly look so much better because he's got better players around him. And yes, they'll all do the work for each other, but you can rely on those players. I mean, you look at what Pep's done with Jack Grealish. Like most players that go to City, they either improve and they buy into it, or it's bye-bye. I mean, you look at Joao Cancelo. He was one of the best right backs in the league. Most people talk about him being the best right back in the world. Didn't buy into what Pep was selling, and he went, off you go. And that wasn't him saying he was bad. It was just him going, you're not doing what I need you to do. So you done. He did it with Zlatan as well. So I think Odegaard over Gundogan, just because Odegaard has been outstanding and in a good team, but he's been a player that's dragged them over the line in games. He's been a difference maker, and we know that Gundogan's a clutch player, but Odegaard has just been like, I don't think there's a top team in European football, even Man City, wouldn't have taken Martin Odegaard this season on the form he's been in.
That's fair enough.
But I think you could easily swap them two around. You could. I mean,
yeah.
But I just think Gundogan is brilliant, but I think he's in a team of brilliant people, whereas Odegaard is a brilliant player in a team of very, very, very good players. And he stood out head and shoulders above the rest. So,
yeah, come up with big moments as well, hasn't he?
But the goal against you was a huge moment because that was a game where everyone was looking at them to be like, oh, this is a big upset game. And he ended up.
The game before that as well, I think he got 2, didn't he? Similar against Chelsea.
Yeah. And he is kind of a big game player, isn't he? So.
Yeah. No, I can agree with that. I tell you what, Norway have got to look forward to, haven't they?
Well, the rest of the squad's not great.
Hey, I tell you what, Gareth Bale managed it with Wales.
I mean, they've got a chance. With those two, they've got a chance. I mean, those of you who don't know, I have said this before. I am like my family are part Norwegian, like going way back to like grandparents. But whenever Norway are playing like this last World Cup, they came third in the group behind Holland and Turkey, so they missed out. But they could going into the last game, and Haaland was injured when it was the last game, and if they won the last game, they'd have gone through. And it's just how much of a difference would he have made? Like Odegaard was good, but you look at the rest of their team; they've got a lot of players that kind of play. A couple that play in Norway, so we play in France, in Denmark, in Belgium, and Holland. Yeah. Like they're not a bit like Wales. They're not an outstanding team. I think you'll definitely see Haaland and Odegaard at the World Cup when they extend the number of teams. They'll probably be at the next Euros. I'd imagine
in the next bunch, won't they?
They'll be at the next Euros. I'm adamant they'll be at the next Euros. But yeah, I think, and again, you look at their age; they've got time on their side. Neither of them are in their primes, and what it will do is it will inspire the next sort of generation of Norwegian footballers, won't it? Like you'd think having two of the best players in the world in the Premier League, which is the most watched league in the world, it will push them on. But
it will, yeah.
So Erling Haaland player of the season, Odegaard runner-up, Gundogan taking home the bronze. So that's our awards. But I'm wondering, Euan, it is your turn. It is your turn to do it. Do we have time for an obscure footballer of the week?
We do. You're gonna have to give me a minute though. I'm gonna have to really, really think of one because I came unprepared.
Oh, I've got an alternative though. Do we do, because it's the season awards? Do we do obscure player of the season rather than obscure player of the week? So we have to pick a player who's played in the Premier League this season.
Okay, right. Hang on. Oh God, right. Hang on. Okay. Is that not going to be way easier though?
I mean, yeah. Well, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because we did the when I went on the Day Trippers podcast, which I came third in, third in that, by the way, and I was hanging out my arse. I came third in that, by the way, out of like 39 people. And they were like, who played the least number of minutes for Liverpool this season? I was like, I have not. And they said him, and I was like, yep, no idea.
Right. Okay, I have one. And it is of the season.
Mm.
I'm going to make it as hard as I possibly can.
Right.
Because I think your knowledge is good, so you'll get it. So this is...
Thank you. I did so well on the last ones you've given me.
Right. His middle name is Kia.
Like the car, or?
Spelt Kya. So Kia. Don't know. Could be either, really. His other middle name is Denley. I'm surprised you haven't got it yet, Jack.
Kaya Denley. That sounds like some sort of like stage actor, doesn't it? But
yeah. He was born the 1st of December, 1999.
Mm-hmm. He's young. 24. 23, 24.
Yeah, that's right. He had a youth career at Arsenal for 10 years.
Right, so he's a London boy, basically.
He was
What was
born
that?
in Hackney.
Hmm.
He started at Arsenal in 2006, so he was only 7 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and he played there until 2016, when he had a trial at his current club where they took him on. In 2020, he went on loan to Weymouth and played 5 times and got 1 goal.
Jaden Anthony.
Some boy! What a show!
Oh, I only know
You
that because
from the Weymouth thing.
no, yeah, because I remember
Oh,
watching.
bollocks.
No, I remember watching. I remember watching the Championship when Bournemouth were coming up. He was phenomenal. I remember watching the playoffs when he was. I mean, he was phenomenal in the playoffs, and that season when Bournemouth got promoted. And literally, they were like, Jaden Anthony, phenomenal. He's played in non-league. He's done this. He's done that. And I was thinking, age. This I couldn't remember what big academy he'd been for, but yeah, Jaden Anthony.
Well done, Jack. Hey, you've really redeemed yourself there, you know. That was quick. I wouldn't have got that. There's no way I would have got that. Not off those clues. No way.
I'm back. I'm back.
You are. He's back, boys and girls.
Hang on. I'm back, baby.
Yeah.
Baby. Do you want to go?
Yeah, go on. Do one for me, and then we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Is it got to be of this season?
Yeah, I'm going to go with this season.
Okay.
I should have been thinking about it, really, shouldn't I?
You were doing enough thinking about that.
Hmm.
I'm really intrigued because I had one other that I was going to go for, and I'm kind of wishing I went for it, but never mind.
Got one.
There's a big clue that we give it away, though.
I've got one. Okay. My middle names. Oh, I'm doing your own game here.
I was going to say, yeah.
My middle names are Gilbert. Not Gilbert,
Okay.
Gilbert with a J. Silverio Chiro.
Okay.
And I was born on the 30th of October, 2001.
Okay, so he's about 22, 23.
Mm-hmm. I am only 5'6".
Okay.
And I started my youth career at a club called RVVV Norderquartier.
Oh, Jack, you're killing me here, mate. What on earth?
I've also had loans. I've also had loan spells at FC Dordrecht and ADO Den Haag.
Okay, right. He's got Dutch links then. He's got Dutch links. Because that's like top flight Eredivisie.
Hmm.
So I'm guessing he's probably. Can I ask questions, or do I just get you clues?
You can, but I'm only going to give you yes or no. I'll give you yes or no answers. I'll give you yes. It has to be yes or no questions.
Did he play for a team like properly, like actually permanently before he was in the Premier League, or did he?
No.
Or was it as in that's not his youth career? I was going to say that.
Define play.
So, as in, like, on his Wikipedia, it says he played for this team first, then that team. Or does it say youth career and then it was, like, at the next team?
No, it's youth career.
Right.
Then there is a club.
Okay.
Then the 2 loans that I said.
Ah, right. Okay.
But he didn't play for said club. He made no appearances.
That's fine. No, that's useful.
That's why I was like, define play. I was like, he had a contract at this club, but never played for him. So.
Okay, go on then. Next one.
I came to the Premier League in 2020, which technically wouldn't have been the Premier League.
Okay, so he came to England.
Came to England, sorry, in
3
2020.
years ago when he was about 19.
Hmm.
Right. Has this player played this season?
Yes. Probably his best season this season.
Oh, shit. Okay, you're going to have to keep going. Sorry.
This season, couldn't tell you. Actually, I'll tell you his stats from this season. So I'll actually go on the Premier League app. Hang on 1 second.
Okay. I'm trying to think of like Dutch links.
Okay, this season, I made 28 appearances, scoring 4 goals, 2 assists, 4 yellow cards.
How many? Sorry, say that again.
28 appearances, 4 goals, 2 assists, 4 yellow cards.
Not a bad record. That's a goal contribution 1 in 4.
That would be 16. That would be 16 games. I don't know where. Goal contribution, I suppose. Yeah.
Goal contribution.
Yeah. I'll give you some of his attacking stats. Goals per match, 0.1. He's had 29 shots. Won 1 penalty. Team play, assist 2, 302 big chances created. Got the same number of passes forward and passes backwards. 123 passes forwards and 123 passes backwards. Crosses 14, dispossessed 36 times. Was subbed on 16 times. Do you want one of the big clues?
Did he finish in the top or the bottom half?
That was going to be one of my. It's not quite as specific, but bottom half.
Okay, right. Okay. Mate, I'm literally stuck here. You're gonna have to keep going. I'm sorry.
I was relegated this season.
Okay, I think I know who it is.
Go on.
No, you see, is it Somerville?
Yeah, it was Crescencio Somerville. Yeah.
Thank God for that. I was thinking, do you know what? He was in my head, but I thought, I think he got more than 4 goals because there was a period where he was bagging every week.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It was a really short period, wasn't it? But
yeah, no, it was very short. Clearly, he didn't score outside of that period. But
that was Crescencio, Gilbert, Silverio, Chiro, Somerville.
What a name, by the way. His mum and dad were showing off there. Imagine that writing that on your exam just before the exam. Just done a full essay before you've opened your paper.
Honestly, what a player. Right, so that's it for this week. We've only got 3 more shows left this season, and I'll quickly run through them with you. It's nice and straightforward. Next week, we've got a big one next week. Actually, any Leicester fans listening, we've actually got an interview with Barry Pierpoint, who was the old Leicester CEO in the 90s, and I know there's a lot of Leicester fans who are not big fans, but I've spoke to him quite a few times now, and my stepdad knows him. He's a nice bloke, and he's given up his time to come and speak to us. So if there's anybody's got any questions they want to put forward to him, anything they want to ask him, genuine, sincere questions, then more than happy to take them on. But we're
not accepting why are you a dickhead. We're not having anything.
No, but don't we? He's not. He's not. I've spoken to him a few times. He's a nice enough bloke, and he's given up his time to come and speak to you. Yeah. He's. I've got to do my homework though. I've got to read his book. I've got to finish his book before we get it, and I'll send you over. I'll send you over my
professional. Everyone, consummate professional. That is why Jack is the brains of this.
Yeah, Euan's copying my homework, so I'm going to send him over my notes once I finish.
Literally.
Then the week after, we got a couple of things in the pipelines. We potentially got another sort of collaboration podcast with a different podcast, but that's not 100% confirmed yet. But it'll be either us two or a few other pieces in the work. And then we're going to end the season with the big fat quiz of the season, where we've got loads of people coming on. We're hopefully going to have more than 10 guests who are going to be taking part in that, where it's just going to be me and you and leading the quiz basically. And I'm not sure. I was thinking about maybe changing the date and maybe finding a weekend and doing this together. Actually, both of us in the same room. But
all right.
I don't know. It's still a few weeks away, so we'll get to that.
The teacher voice will have to come out, Jack. Fingers on lips.
Just going 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Hands up if you want to speak. It's going to be a nightmare. But then we're going to go on a summer break throughout July. We've got if we get any guests or any specials, there might be some emergency specials during the summer break. And then we're hopefully going to be back on the 1st of August, is when we're scheduled to be back. We are going to be hopefully in August or July going on holiday together with some of the boys. So if it's in August, there might be a special with us sort of sunning ourselves up in wherever we're going to be. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, we've got 3 left. I'm really looking forward to the one next week, I'll be honest.
I'm nervous.
Why? I've spoke to Steve Walsh, mate. I've been there.
We're talking about with this guy. We have to know what we're talking about,
mate. Little plug here, but go and listen to my one with Steve Walsh. See how it's done, mate. See how it's done.
I know. I was impressed. I did listen to that. I'm very impressed. Hey, I'm sure we'll be fine. You know, we'll hold each other's hand through it and stuff. But I am.
Mate, you got to start doing some grafting here. I'm the one who's booking all the guests.
Hey,
You got to start doing some
there
grafting
is no
here.
denying that, and I'm sure everyone will openly admit it in the comments, and I'll get messages. But we love you for it, Jack. We appreciate you for it, and you are the brains of this.
I don't know if I'm the brains, mate. I'm the organs.
All right, fair enough.
I'm the gristle on the muscle. That's what I am, mate.
We're fucked because we haven't got any brains between us. Then
last week when I was doing a double header and you were off dating everyone, like just doing your own thing on bank holiday, I was here grafting. I did a double header.
Oh my god! Cheers, Jack.
And I had to do, and I had to do, and I had to do that.
pal.
I had to do that bloody added time. I had to do that bloody Leicester monologue that I went on. And I went to see Union FS on Thursday with the thing. I'm going to their tournament on Sunday. I'm not playing, but I'm watching. But I'm networking here, there, and everywhere. Honestly,
Busiest man in the Midlands.
I don't think I am, mate. Plenty of people more busy than I am.
But we do appreciate it, mate. We do appreciate it.
Right. Yeah. So we'll be back next week. Big one next week that I'm really looking forward to. Got to do my homework for it, but we'll get there. Again, I've been Jack. Been joined once again by Euan, giving his lovely contributions from the living room. We'll be back next week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating on Spotify. All of the things that make it worthwhile for us to do it. We love doing it. I can't wait to be back for next season, even though we haven't finished this season on the summer break. I can't wait to be back doing it next season. We've got
to do transfer specials as well, Jack. That's got to be something.
Yeah.
We've got loads on that. I've got people I can speak to and everything. We will get some lowdown on the transfers.
Also, any listeners who are you and I haven't even told you this, so this is breaking news from talking about Styles.
Get the little bar across the bottom.
I'm gonna annoy you in here, but there is going to be a special episode coming out weekly next season where Euan is being replaced as host because he'll be in the Premier League and so he won't care. But me and Luke, we have a guest host for weekly specials next season. Luke from the Corridor of Uncertainty podcast is going to be on loan with us at times next season as we do a championship weekly special as well. So me and you, that's not changing. We're still going to be here for the Premier League malarkey and all the other nonsense that we talk about.
I'm
all
just
the guest specials.
Some paperwork for divorce, lads.
Oh, look at that!
I'm devastated.
It's a polyamorous relationship, Euan. It's polyamorous.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind. I know you'll do us proud.
Yeah, but so that's I mean, to be fair, mate, you can do your own if you want. You can get a Premier League special guest on here, but
No. Because you know that much, I rely on you to allow me to talk shit. That's how it works.
What, you don't talk shit, Euan? What do you talk?
Talk bollocks.
Honestly,
That's our new slogan, Jack.
The amount of people that are like, "Oh, where'd you get that name from?" I was like, I pulled it out of my ass. I'm not going to lie; it's got no relevance whatsoever. But that is the day that we finished. The second we managed to get Michael Ballack on here as a guest, that is the day that we retire forever. So, Michael, if you're listening, you'll make my life easier because I won't have to work as hard. But anyway, yeah. So once again, goodbye again. I've been Jack. He's been Euan. We've been talking about Alex, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
See you later, lads.
Cheers, guys.